Good morning, everyone. I am Rita Garcia. I am going to be one of your guides here who's going to take you through the process for completing the SNAP applications. A lot of us have um, a lot of information regarding some of those applications, some of the more intricate um, questions we'll try to answer at the very end of the presentation. But we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start. So what is BEC? So BEC stands for Benefit Enrollment Center, and our team aims to provide application assistance for public benefits, help people understand our benefits and advocate if needed, and conduct outreach to educate the public, as well as support other benefits counselors in our aging network. Now, housekeeping, just please make sure that you guys stay on mute if you're not speaking. We will definitely try to get to the questions as well at the very end. Content questions that arise throughout the training can be submitted in the chat room. Questions will be answered in the chat and after the presentation as well. Slides and toolkits were sent via email this morning, so you all should receive those, and recordings will be shared afterwards as well. So the goal of this training today is practical training is offered from the perspective of a benefits counselor. It's also an introductory instruction on how to complete an ABE application for those who are new to the um, procedure, as well as introduce a specific language used by key stakeholders, as well as basic introduction to the Illinois DHS system. Now, this is a part of a series of introductory trainings available to new benefits counselors, and recordings of Intro to Medicaid and Intro to Medicare savings programs are also available, and you should also look into those as well in the future. So the agenda today, we're going to do a SNAP overview, as well as the Illinois SNAP enrollment process, the ABE application, the IDHS interview, redeterminations, as well as troubleshooting, which is my personal favorite. Part one, we're going to go ahead and go over the SNAP overview. So what is SNAP? So SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It is a food assistance program that supplements grocery budgets for people with low incomes. It's funded by the federal government, and it funds the full cost of benefits and half the cost of administering the program, as well as state government. It funds half the cost of administering the program. So it's kind of a 50-50 ordeal. So the key government stakeholders, at the very top, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my little pointer. You have the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Services. They pretty much regulate the SNAP and authorizes the monitors and retailers. Then you have Health and Family Services, so HFS, that's the state government body making policy decisions. As well, you have the Illinois Department of Human Services on the pyramid here, and that's IDHS, the government body that administers the benefit and processes the applications. And then you have here on the bottom ring, you have the Family Community Resource Center, so the FCRC, the Family Community Resource Center, FCRC as well. They are a subsection of IDHS, often referred to as the local public aid office. So this can be in a multitude of areas, depending on the client or caller where they're located. This is the physical place an application gets sent to and processed. Then you have the local office, the LOA. Local office administrators run the local office similar to an office manager. And then you have the caseworkers here at the bottom, very bottom rung. The caseworkers receive applications and approve or deny the benefit applications based on the requirements. So for the FCRC offices, you can use the IDHS office locator to search for exact addresses. This is very helpful too for locating if a client doesn't necessarily know where they're located or where their local office is. If they wanted to go inside, they could. They can do so by visiting this. The stats and facts, pardon me, approximately 4.8 million older adults age 60 plus are enrolled in SNAP. and about 3 out of 5 seniors who qualify are not enrolled. So the average SNAP benefit of an older adult is $118 a month, and every $1 in SNAP benefits generates over $1.79 in local economic activity. Access to SNAP is associated with reduced healthcare costs, 23% less likely to enter a nursing home, and 4% less likely to be hospitalized. What can you buy with SNAP? So the things that you can purchase are breads, fruit, fruits and vegetables, non-alcoholic beverages, of course, meat, fish, and poultry, dairy products, edible plants and seeds. And where can you use these your SNAP benefits? You can use them at the grocery stores, Aldi, Pete's, Target, Walmart, Costco, Sam's Club, etc. So pretty much etc. Online through Amazon, of course, there are select places on Amazon where you can use your SNAP benefits. Select restaurants also offer a SNAP benefit where you could utilize it there, as well as farmers markets. And the really cool thing about that is for every $2 spent, you receive $1 back. And there's also a link here that will take you to the local farmers markets that do accept the SNAP benefits. So the SNAP enrollment process. So the first step, what we usually do is you complete and submit the application. Then as counselors, we upload the documents, we interview them, and then they will receive a decision. And after they receive the decision, it's usually good for, depending on their actual application, 6 months to a year. And then they do the redetermination process when that period is up. So what are the eligibility requirements? So for the eligibility, SNAP is a means tested program, meaning that applicants must be below a certain income limit to qualify. Gross income is the income received before deductions. Other factors can affect eligibility, such as the household size, your age, and disability status. And eligibility amounts are based off the federal poverty line, the FPL, and limits are raised every year. So SNAP FPL increases typically go into effect in October. SNAP households. So everyone who lives together and purchases and prepares meals together is grouped together as one SNAP household, sometimes referred to as a SNAP unit. So one link card and one SNAP case file is shared between the household. Spouses and children under the age of 22 must be included in the same household even if they prepare meals separately. So this is a chart of the 2025 income limits. As you can take a look here, it has changed a bit. For the household of one, the maximum allotment is $292. The gross income must be 2,071, and the gross income for a qualifying member is $2,510. As you can see, the rest of the chart, it gives you the breakdown for each depending on the household size. So what counts as income? So IDHS counts any money received in the last 30 days prior to application. This is any money received from any source other than a loan. So that would include a salary or the hourly wages, cash assistance, earned income will be the cash assistance, AABD or TANF, self-employment, Social Security, survivors, disability, and retirement. For earned income, money received from odd jobs. Unearned income is supplemental security income, so SSI. Rental property for earned income, and then any money received from family and friends that's not expected to be repaid is under the earned income, unearned income. Money from on-the-job training, and for unearned income, unemployment insurance, child support, as well as pensions. And now, how is the SNAP dollar amount calculated? So the gross monthly income for SNAP deductions equals SNAP net income. Now, the client's gross income must be under a certain income limit as discussed in the prior chart. This is the income limit noted in the chart of benefits. The SNAP deductions relate to the applicant's living expenses. The amount of the deductions depends on the type of expense and typically follows a formula. Rarely is the amount deducted reflective of the client's actual living expense. Now, the SNAP net income determines the monthly benefit amount. So here's the SNAP eligibility. It's a diagram of the SNAP eligibility calculator. As you can see, it's a little tiny. Hopefully you guys can see that. So here you got the household size and everyone who's in the household, 60 or older, blind or disabled. They'll have questions that you have to answer. They'll provide the information to you. Go ahead and put that into the actual system, and they will determine what the eligibility would be. Okay, and here's some more information regarding that. The potential amount, this is kind of estimated um, after inputting all the information. Now, qualifying member. Now, there are many ways to be considered a qualifying member, including be 60 plus, have a disability, receive AABD cash or AEBD medical benefits, receive Social Security benefits or railroad retirement disability benefits, BA disability at 100%, as well as special benefits, so a higher gross income limit, deduction for medical expenses greater than $35, unlimited deductions for excess shelter expenses as well. And there is some more information. There's some links here that will take you to more information regarding that. Elderly disabled status. So if a person is 60 plus and unable to purchase and prepare meals separately because of a permanent disability, the person and their spouse may be a separate SNAP unit if they buy and share food with people that are also under the gross income limit. So, for example, Mary is 65 years old and she's under the SNAP gross income limit and lives with her daughter and two grandchildren. Now, Mary has a permanent disability that limits her mobility, and due to her disability, her daughter cooks for her and helps her grocery shop. So, Mary's daughter and her family also qualify for SNAP. Due to Mary's age and disability status, she is eligible to apply as her own SNAP household and receive her own SNAP card and benefits. And there's more detailed information regarding that here at hyperlink below. Now we're going to talk about asset tests for qualifying members. So some qualifying members who are over the gross income limit may still qualify for SNAP if they have high expenses. In this instance, they must have have less than $4,250 in assets and must submit a bank statement. And this is due to rules surrounding categorical eligibility. And for more details on that, some links as well listed below. And then there's non-citizen eligibility. So legal permanent residents 18 plus after having a green card for 5 years, 17 and under, blind or disabled with no time restrictions, refugees or asylees, certain survivors of domestic violence or human trafficking and their children. So there's BTTC benefits. And the BTTC applicants should contact Legal Aid Chicago or consult with a lawyer. Non-citizens who are ineligible may still apply on behalf of their children who meet citizenship or residency criteria. Now, there are multiple special situations that apply to non-citizens that impact eligibility and require additional documentation. So other special situations are listed here. The mixed eligibility household. Mixed eligibility households may still be able to get SNAP, so you can refer to the attached GCFD training for instructions as well. The citation for that is the Greater Chicago Food Depository. It gives you a little information. There's a toolkit available to look into the other special situations. Students of higher education, so those between ages of 18 and 50, they must be working an average of 20 hours a week or be approved for work study to qualify for SNAP. So there are some other unique circumstances that may also be relevant. As well as survivors of domestic violence. So survivors who have fled or are eligible to receive SNAP benefits, even if included in a current SNAP case with the abuser, they are entitled to additional privacy protections and may also qualify. Another special citation, parental control. Children under 22 must apply with their parents. Foster children can also choose to include a foster child in their SNAP unit. A foster parent can include their kid. Foster children cannot get SNAP as their own household. So if you have no permanent address, people without a permanent address are still eligible for SNAP and must make a personal statement to DHS. and unaccompanied minors. So teens who live on their own without family or legal guardianship can apply for their own case without parent permission. And there's information regarding all of these circumstances and situations here hyperlinked. So emergency SNAP. So emergency SNAP are expedited SNAP benefits that become readily available in 5 days or less from application date. And you qualify for emergency SNAP if your monthly income, cash, and bank accounts are less than your rent or your mortgage plus your utility costs, or your monthly income is less than $150 and your cash and bank accounts are not more than 100, or at the very least one person in your household is a migrant farm worker and your cash and bank accounts are not more than $100. So emergency SNAP, if a client disqualifies for emergency SNAP and is also in need of Medicaid or Medicare Savings Program or MSP, assuming they don't already have SNAP, they are able to apply for all three programs and SNAP simultaneously. In other words, the applications will be processed at the same time without waiting a normal period of 45 to 60 days. So we're going to do the part two of the ABE walkthrough. So what is ABE? The Application for Benefits Eligibility is the state of Illinois official platform where individuals can submit applications or inquire about the status of their cases for the following public benefits. So we have Medicaid, very popular, low income health insurance, and then we have SNAP, which we've been discussing for the last few minutes, and this helps pay for groceries, also known as EBT, link, or food stamps. We have TANF and AABD cash, a cash benefit available to people with low income. We also have the Medicare Savings Program, three benefit programs that pay for Medicare Part B premiums. And we have the MSP program, the Qualified Medicare Beneficiary, so the QMB, also pays Medicare Part A premiums and Medicare cost sharing. Now, we unfortunately do not train on AABD cash or TANF. So benefits to applying with an ABE account, the applications are much easier to track if there is a record of everything. Faxed or mailed applications run a risk of getting lost, and there is no record of what was listed on an in-person application. So the platform offers a secure way to upload the documents, and we strongly recommend applying with an ABE account as much as possible. There are many barriers to the online ABE platform, but it can be a useful tool when you're able to utilize it. So the intake information. Um, Proof of identity found on a driver's license or state ID, your full name and date of birth for everyone on the application, social security numbers for everyone applying for benefits, the alien registration number for any person who's applying and not a US citizen, information about gross monthly income for everyone on the application, value of everyone's cash, checking, savings, and or any type of bank account, the amount spent on rent or mortgage, renters and homeowners insurance, as well as property taxes, any amount spent on water, gas, electric, and phone bills, and amount spent on monthly medical expenses for qualifying members. So this is the home screen for ABE. Um, this is where you go and apply for benefits. Here under manage my case. Home screen. So the first thing you're going to learn is check if you should apply. So there's a way to determine if you should or if you may be eligible. The benefit screener, so a tool to help determine what benefits the household may qualify for. And then you can apply for benefits. The application, so link to apply for SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare Savings Program, or cash benefits. And then there's the Manage My Case, a portal that allows you to view the status of any existing benefits case and apply for new programs, file redeterminations, and report changes. And on the login screen, all users of ABE Illinois are required to create an Illinois login. This is where a lot of people have the most trouble and are taken for a loop when it comes to creating the Illinois login. It is a two-point authentication process. So you create the Illinois login, And in most cases, when working with a new client, you'll begin by creating an Illinois login. I generally tend to have them do so prior to our appointment if we schedule an appointment to make it a little easier so they can get assistance. Um, this is what you have them do as well. If the client is not able to establish an Illinois login, you may apply without an account. So there's an option here to apply for benefits without an account at the very end, circled here in red, which is a really cool feature. And then proceeding without an account. So when you proceed without an account, after selecting to apply without an account, you will see this pop up. You're going to click the blue hyperlink at the bottom to be directed to the application. And that is an awesome feature for people who struggle with the actual two-point authentication, um, process for the Illinois login. But if they don't, this is where you would go on creating an Illinois login. So enter the client's email, the name, and create a password. Do not enter your email or someone else's who may use an Illinois login in the future. Also use for SSA.gov because it'll be saved in there. Only one account can be attached to an email, okay? And then you're going to select setup under email. So under email, you're going to do setup. So it's taking you through a step-by-step process of how to set up the actual password and login information. And then next, you'll be directed to select a security method. So all accounts will be required to set up an email. And after clicking setup, you may enter the client's email as well as your password. So in this second box is where we have the information. Then you're going to enter the code sent to the email. So usually that's just via the person's cell phone. They'll be able to provide the code for you so you can apply on their behalf. And it'll be sent to either their phone or email address, and they'll give you that code, and you can go ahead and be able to go to the next step in the process for signing on. And you're going to set up a second security method, so a two-point authentication process. Um, the security questions, a lot of people prefer this because it's something that they can remember, and that's actually um, valuable to them memory-wise. So the client can opt to set up the second security method by phone, security questions, or authenticator apps. As caseworkers, it can be helpful to use security questions to avoid having to contact the client each time we access their account. So connect the ABE profile. So once you're done with your Illinois login, you can go ahead and connect the profiles so you can apply for redetermination future, or you can actually check the status to see what's going on. And once both security methods are verified, you'll be directed back to the login screen to connect it. So you go ahead and connect those profiles. We highly encourage people to do that. If the client has a previous A profile, you may enter their user ID and password. Um, this is sometimes where we get a little hung up when we're doing the application. Sometimes you have a previous password or previous application and they have forgotten their login. So maybe this may be a way to remedy some of the issues with that. If the client does not have a previous account, you can click the blue hyperlink at the bottom to create a profile. Sometimes they can start from scratch doing this method. And when entering a previous profile, you may encounter an error. Just click the blue hyperlink to bypass the error, okay? And then you're going to select Start a New Application to begin. So click here to start a new application. It's listed here. And then only start a new application if the client is certain they or their spouse has Medicaid, SNAP, MSP, or AABD cash, and therefore do not have an active case with an FCRC public aid office, okay? So scroll down to the bottom and then you'll be able to click next when it comes to the information here. And then you're going to check in with your agency to see if you need to become an approved representative. It'll tell you here, okay? Some of your organizations may have registered as a community agency, and if so, list your agency number there and the box here. Then you're going to click apply for food assistance. So please note if you have your client apply for multiple programs, there may be additional steps and documentation required. And then this is another screen that tells you more about the benefits that you're going to be applying for or possibly interested in applying for. It's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. All right, and then there's the general information. We're going to go into that section. All right, so there's Johnny Appleseed's account, his name, and we're going through the basic information like his date of birth and his marital status. Then here we can mail notices about your benefits. We'll need that a mailing address is very important so that they can get that information out as far as their approval letter or denial letter, depending on their circumstance. And applicants can also elect to get text reminders for important dates as well, like sub dates, which is very helpful for people who want to know what their status is without having to log back onto the actual system. And applicants can also elect to get emailed reminders that notices are available online or were mailed. So the people in a home tool, that's another section on the application. So to make sure you pause and consider how this description applies to your client's living situation when you're determining how to complete the application, because everyone's situations are somewhat unique. So just make sure we're asking the right questions and you determine exactly where they stand in the process. And then the up-to-date taxes are not required. This information is used to help the caseworker understand who is in the household for benefits purposes. And then a social security number is required for anyone applying for benefits. So if a household member is not applying, their social security number does not need to be entered. Okay. If a household member is not a U.S. citizen, you may enter their citizenship information. So if this person is a U.S. citizen, it's yes or no. But yes, just give you an idea so you can look at the screen a bit. Okay. Veteran information. So, was this person in the military or a spouse or child or someone in the military? It's something we would definitely want to make sure we're asking as well in the process. The race and ethnicity information. So this information is optional. Some people will automatically let you know that they don't feel comfortable responding to or answering this question. It's their right and it's okay. We can bypass it. We can do they prefer not to answer or yes. The client is living at the address they previously selected, and select in this home. So in many institutional settings, the facility will keep the benefits, consult an experienced counselor if you encounter any of these situations. So shelter care does not refer to someone staying in a homeless shelter. This refers to a specific type of facility. Okay. And then there's migrant or seasonal farm workers may be entitled to expedited benefits. So there's different types of situations that we've stated before um, for in this home portion of the actual application process. Now, the community care program is a caretaking service facilitated by the Illinois Department of Aging, or IDOA, and recipients usually have HCBS waiver and will also receive Medicaid. So they'll have questions regarding blindness or disability, Department on Aging Services for people who apply through Department of IDOA or partner site, out of state SNAP food stamp benefits. Is anyone getting any benefits from out of state? Also, things that are required. And then as far as the disability information, so there's more about Johnny's disability. Here are his blindness. You want to answer all those questions as best as possible. Um, go into more details about that. So if a person received their disability status from an institution other than Social Security, such as the VA, write an estimated date of disability and make a note in the comment section and submit proof of disability. Okay. And you can do that in the upload section later. So has anyone been approved to receive services on a developmental disability waiver but not yet received benefits? These are some of the questions they'll ask if they're in an alcohol or drug treatment program or if they're a victim of domestic violence. And then you're going to click add person to other household members information um, next. And then other household members will get asked the same questions. So you're going to make sure you add a person for each person so we'll know who we're specifying for the actual questions regarding each person in the household for eligibility. Now we're going to do identity proofing. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Haley.
Alrighty. Okay, so to start off with identity proofing. All right, so at this point in the application, it'll prompt you to verify the applicant's identity. So you'll see this page here. At the bottom, will say, do you have an Illinois driver's license or state ID card? So if the person you're applying is in front of you with an ID card, you can go ahead and select yes. And then you'll see over here, it'll ask you to enter the person's first, middle, and last name. You'll want to write everything on here exactly as it's stated on the ID. Um, if it has a middle initial, you enter the initial, not the full middle name, date of birth, eye color, height, and weight, exactly as it's listed. An issue that I see every so often is that you'll leave off the 0 in front of the inches when it referring to heights. When this happens, it won't verify properly and you'll be asked to submit the information again. So just be careful to enter that 0. And then you also input the 12-digit Illinois driver's license and state ID number. So if you don't have that ID on hand to enter everything exactly, such as if you're applying someone over the phone, you can also use background questions to verify their identity. All these questions are pulled from their credit report, so this is unfortunately only available if someone has a credit history. So the type of questions that they'll ask you is what street have they lived on, a previous phone number, which is always a tricky one to remember, the current county that they live in, mother's maiden name, a previous employer, I'll see a lot too, a type of what auto loan they previously had. So it's very specific information. If you either answered incorrectly too many times, or inputted the ID information incorrectly too many times, or if verifying the identity this way is just not available for the person, you'll see this screen prompting them to call Experian. So you can either do that, or there's also forms that you can manually um, fill out and then fax to DHS or mail to DHS instead. Okay, so now onto assets. So assets refer to the liquid resources or the money that, like financial accounts that the person has. So they'll ask if they have cash at home, if they have a savings or checking account, or any other type of liquid resources. Examples of other types of liquid resources is like a trust or annuity, as you see here, IRA, savings bonds, credit union accounts, etc. If they selected that they do have other liquid resources, you'll check off which ones apply. And then for each liquid resource you selected, it'll ask you what is the balance of each of these accounts. So for this example, we have Johnny's checking account. So we would enter exactly the amount that he states that he currently has in his checking account. It'll also ask you if he has sold or given away any of these resources in the last 60 months. Okay, on to income. So first we'll ask about job income. So we'll ask if the applicant is currently employed or was employed in the last 3 months. It'll ask if they're currently or previously self-employed within the last 3 months, or if they have quit a job or reduced their work hours to less than 30 hours per week, or refused to take a job in the last 60 days. So these questions are referring to the work provisions that Illinois has. These have been waived for the last few years. Um, of course, as like most of us have heard, they're proposing an expansion of these work requirements. As of right now, they are currently waived. All right, so then if your applicant is currently working or has worked in the last 3 months, you'll enter details about their employer, such as the name, address, phone, the applicant's job title, when they started the job, and then specifics about their pay. So if they have how much they get paid each time and how often they're paid, so their pay period, if they are an hourly worker, if they receive any additional types of payments such as a bonus, commission, or tips, if they're on strike or if their job has ended or going to end, and of course, if they have any other jobs. So if someone you're working with has variable income, meaning that they don't get paid the same or work the same hours every week, then you'll just state what they have earned in the previous 30 days. So if you're working with someone who is self-employed, you'll be asked what type of self-employment that they have, the start date of their self-employment, how many hours they are self-employed, their gross monthly income, as well as the business expenses, and if it's expected to continue for the next 30 days. So some tips that we have outlined for self-employment, just fill out as much information as you can at the time of application if possible. If they can deduct work expenses from their gross income, um, it will, so self-employed individuals can deduct work expenses from their gross income when determining eligibility. So the more expenses that you deduct, the lower their income would be, making them eligible. So be sure to list any and all expenses. They can submit ledgers to help document these expenses, and they do not need to submit any receipts as proof. This is a link to that ledger that you'll have in your toolkit. So other types of income. So when they say other income, they're really referring to unearned income or income that they are not currently working to earn. So things like Social Security. So they'll ask if they receive SSI, and then retirement, survivors, and disability insurance. So retirement is referring to Social Security retirement, survivor is Social Security survivor's benefit, and disability is Social Security disability insurance. And also ask if they're receiving child support or if they get money for renting a room or providing meals, if they receive any adoption subsidies, or if there's other type of income. So when they say other income, these are the different types of income that they can be referring to. So money from others, such as friends or family, so a cash gift, alimony, veteran benefits, interest payments that they may receive, pension, which is a common one we'll check off for, unemployment, etc. Okay. So loans. So loans are different than cash gifts. So all loans are exempt from income calculations. So someone can submit a signed statement from both parties. So the person who is applying from the person who has loaned them the money that will detail the amount of the loan and state that repayment is required. So this can be as simple as what we've stated here. I loan Jenny $500 and expect her to pay it back. So just an example. So here we said that Johnny is receiving retirement benefits. So you'll see that retirement, survivors, and disabilities insurance on top. So you'll see a screen similar to this for any other income you reported that they receive. So you'll state when they started receiving payments, how often they get paid. So if that's monthly or so on, how much each payment is, and then if it's expected to continue for the next 30 days. Okay, living expenses. So this is a very important category. So I'm going to read from this slide, try to explain as much as possible. So living expenses affect how much someone gets in SNAP benefits. So you'll hear the term deductions. So the term deductions refers to living expenses that are deducted from the SNAP applicant's gross income and used to determine the SNAP net income. So the person will have their income and then they'll have certain deductions, which is the living expenses that they have. So the amount deducted is not based off the actual cost of the living expense. So each type of living expense has their own formula and standardized rates that frankly are very dated. So the SNAP net income is not an actual reflection of the person's actual net income. So if they have rent, which is 500 subtracted from their income of 1,500, your SNAP net income isn't going to be $1,000. They have their own calculations. So as a general rule, the more types of deductions you can claim, the higher the benefit amount will be. And sometimes this is more important than the actual expense itself. And we'll show you what we mean by that. So first, they're going to ask you about the housing and utility bills. So they'll ask, do they pay any bills for housing, such as rent, mortgage, property taxes, insurance, or temporary housing? Yes or no. If they pay any utility bills, like gas, electricity, water, sewer, and telephone. Yes or no. And if they have received a payment of $21 or more from LIHEAP within the last 12 months. And then if they are billed separately from their rent or mortgage for heat or air conditioning, or if they are responsible for the excess costs, so that heat or AC may be included in their rent, but they are billed for any excess themselves. Okay, and then room and meals, if they pay to stay in someone else's house or get meals as part of their rent. So example of housing bills is like rent, mortgage, renter, or homeowner's insurance, property taxes if they own their property, condo or HOA fees, or other. And in the bottom right, you'll see what will pop up for each of these housing bills that you've selected. So we selected that Johnny pays rent, so they'll ask how much his rent is supposed to be and how often he makes payments. Okay, and then for the utility bills, you can select the most common ones, like I find that we check off is water and sewer, electricity, heat, AC, telephone, and that can include a person's cell phone bill, and garbage and trash pickup. And just a note, proof of these utilities is not required. So this is a chart that me and a colleague made. It's the type of utility matters more than the cost. So this is what I stated earlier. So we have a chart of highest to lowest, which will yield the highest deductions or get them the higher SNAP benefit. So at the top, the highest deductions would come from if they related to the heat and AC, if they receive assistance through LIHEAP, if they have an AC window unit, which feels random, but you get a good deduction for that, and as well as if they are responsible for excess heat or AC cost, if the utilities are included in their rents. Next is if they only have two or more utilities other than heat or AC, as well as phone. Next is they will get less deduction if they only pay for one utility and a phone bill, even less if they only pay for a phone bill, and then the lowest deduction if they only have one utility. So this is something like electricity, not related to heat or AC. Okay, so other expenses that they can claim to get a bigger deduction is if they have any ongoing medical or unpaid medical bills from previous months, if they are receiving Medicare A or B, if they have job expenses, or if they have any other sort of expense that they deduct from their federal tax return. So medical deductions for qualifying members. So qualifying members can report medical expenses from the previous 30 days. So these medical expenses must total at least $35 in order to get the standard deduction of $185. So if you're working with someone who pays more than $185 in medical bills, they may be able to actually get the expense deducted. So recurring medical expenses are divided out over the billing period, and all medical bills must be submitted with the application. Most qualifying members can report monthly Medicare Part B premiums. So if you're working with someone who does not have Medicare Savings Program and they are paying that Part B monthly, that can be used as a medical expense in order to get that deduction. So types of medical bills you can request a deduction for is like inpatient treatments, medical, dental, or vision services, any medical equipment or prescription drugs, any insurance premiums, as well as transportation to and from medical appointments as well. It'll ask a few more questions about the person's Medicare, whether or not they're receiving Medicare Part A, receiving Medicare Part B, as well as their Medicare or Railroad Retirement Claim number. If you stated that they do have job expenses, I'll ask some very specific questions, such as if they buy or bring a lunch to work, if they are responsible for purchasing uniforms or any special tools, and I'll ask specifically the cost of those things. It'll also ask about transportation, such as if they own a car, if they take the bus, or any other sort of transportation. How many miles do they drive if they do use their own car, and more. And there is a ledger that you can submit with this as well. Okay, so final steps. So that's really the meat of the application. It'll take you to the final summary where you're just going to make sure everything you stated is accurate. It'll ask about the SNAP interview. We're going to go into more detail on this in a bit, but it'll ask um, so everyone who's applying for SNAP has to do a interview with DHS. So it'll ask if they would like to go into the office for an interview, or if they prefer a phone interview. So if they select that they would like a phone interview, they'll want to enter the best number. I always recommend a cell phone that they would keep on them. Not everyone likes to use a cell phone, but it's something that they'll take everywhere with them, and to leave it on and answer all phone calls. And then you'll select, if they choose a phone interview, the reason why. So whether it's because of work hours or any educational activities that conflict with DHS office hours, if they have any issues with their health or transportation or severe weather, or if they are responsible for a child or disabled adult that they cannot leave. Next, we'll be on to additional information. So you can use this box to explain anything that you feel is important for the caseworker to know. Um, this is a place to be brief and to be professional, and we recommend supplying as much supporting documentation for anything that you're indicating here. Okay, if you enter anything that would flag the person for being eligible for emergency SNAP, you may see this screen that will just review that information with you. So that's things like the income and resource limit. Okay, next you'll see this screen where you can go back to any point in the application and review. You're not required to go through each of these links. I thought that when I first started, but if you're confident in everything you inputted, you can just move on. And then you'll go to signing the application. So make sure you read this to your client, or that they have this information and can read it for themselves. It'll state where the application's going. So it'll automatically choose the closest FCRC to your client's address. It'll also state the phone number for that FCRC. Just so you know, this will just lead to the IDHS hotline. It is not actually going to go to the local office, unfortunately. If you would like to have the application sent to a different office, if you want it to one closer to you, the caseworker, or if you'd prefer to, have some sort of issue with that office, you can send it somewhere else as well. Okay, and then you'll check off under the fraud penalty affidavit, and then for the electronic attestation, if you are the approved rep and the client is not present, you can check off and enter your name. If your client is present, you can enter theirs. Okay, next is the submission summary. So you'll have the T number, the tracking number at the top there. You'll also be able to print your application. And then at the bottom, you'll see next steps. So when you click next, you can go to the document submission part of the application and upload documents right away. If you have access to their Manage My Case, you can submit them at a later time as well. Details on that is in the document submission and Manage My Case PowerPoint in your toolkit. So after submission, I just recommend providing the client a copy of their application and that confirmation page. Advise the client on the timeline and next steps, especially that interview portion. Submit all required documents to DHS via ABE or fax. Fax, of course, is not recommended, but you can upload an ABE or fax it if need be. Okay, now the interview portion. So as we stated, there is a in-person interview option. This varies depending on the location. I have not heard of many in-person interviews going on recently. But if they choose to do so, they may be allowed to bring someone with them to the interview, but to check the local agency to ensure that. They may opt for the phone interview. So if they opt for this, like I said, I recommend that they answer all phone calls within the next 30 days of submitting the application. warn them that they cannot call back if that phone call is missed. I personally tell my clients to let me know if they miss it, and I try to my best to get in contact with the office for them. There is no standard number that DHS calls from. Um, I've heard that for some people it will pop up as state of Illinois. For many others, it'll say scam likely or unknown. Um, on these phone calls, sometimes I've heard of caseworkers disclosing if they've been approved during the call, but that's not a guarantee. Appointment letters. So some people will receive a letter in the mail stating when their appointment for their interview is. Um, there's often inconsistencies, such as the letter not being received af before that interview date. Some people get it a day after. It depends. Many people don't receive a letter at all, and they just receive that phone call when the caseworker is able to phone them. DHS is not required to contact applicants at the scheduled interview time, so they may call at any point in that 30 days. So do they ask during the interviews? So a lot of times it's just verifying the information we've already submitted, like their name, social security number, address, verifying their income amount, as well as the utilities that they pay. Sometimes DHS caseworkers will let them know what sort of documentation they're going to request after the fact, but is not guaranteed. Oh, also, I also explain to clients the verification checklist as well. So what documents that they can anticipate, um, that they may anticipate asking for. Okay, so when it comes to the interview, I remind people that they should have their social security number, pay stub, social security award letter ready, um, either for the in-person interview or for the phone interview, just to because they're going to verify that information, as well as any rent or mortgage. Remember how much they pay for that, utilities, any medical expenses. So processing time. So DHS is legally required to process an app application within 30 days. That's 5 days if they are eligible for emergency SNAP. Um, if it does not happen during that time period, I encourage the client to phone the DHS hotline or myself, try to contact the office. Okay, so when they are approved, they will receive the link card in the mail. We just have some helpful links. So the link website here, the phone number to the link helpline. So recipients can call that hotline in order to activate the card. So they would input that 16-digit um, number on the front and set up their PIN. Other things they can do on the hotline is change their address, check their account balance, report a lost or stolen link card, order a replacement, change their PIN, and also check their recent purchases and withdrawals or report a problem with the purchase. Okay, now off to the redetermination. About at time here. So I will go ahead and just breeze through this for those who can stay a few minutes after. So redetermination is required every 1 to 2 years to ensure that they still qualify for benefits. There's a physical form that they'll receive in the mail when it's time, but they can also check manage my case. There's that big blue button in the top left that says renew my benefits. That'll pop up about 60 days before the redetermination's due. For people who are 16 older or disabled, and they're the only persons in the SNAP unit, them or a partner, um, they can wait 2 years to redetermine. So they get a longer period if they are on a fixed income. All right. And then change reports. If any of these things happen, they are required to um, report the change within 10 days of it happening. So a change in contact method, so a phone number, change in household, so moved in or out, change of income, expenses or bills have changed, resources have changed, or health insurance has changed. So they can complete this and manage my case or by calling the DHS hotline. And then I'll skip this part. So just a reminder to review your toolkits. We have all this great information in there and a copy of the slides. The recording will be posted to our ADRN resource page on ageoptions.org. I'll also email it to you all. All right, thank you. Okay, any questions in the chat? Doesn't look like it. Okay, you can feel free to email me any questions when I send out the toolkit if you have them. Fortunately, I don't have time today, but thank you all for attending. Hope you got some helpful information. All right, thank you, everyone.